Good morning, everybody. We're back. Thank you for joining us. We are here for our fifth discussion on our Pentapalooza Summer Series. So we're glad to have you back with us, and I'm glad to be joined today with Terry.
Hey, I'm glad to be here, Josh. Except, you guys name-checked me last week.
We did.
They name-checked me twice, so I felt like I had to come and defend myself.
Every word is said. But together.
Good morning, everybody. We're back. Thank you for joining us. We are here for our fifth discussion on our Pentapalooza Summer Series. So we're glad to have you back with us, and I'm glad to be joined today with Terry.
Hey, I'm glad to be here, Josh. Except, you guys name-checked me last week.
We did.
They name-checked me twice, so I felt like I had to come and defend myself. So Josh told me I'm going to start out here. I'm with the UCC Church, where Miss Lisa is and Beth. And last week we had communion, which was a great thing to have when we're discussing worship. What is worship and why do we worship? And what is prayer and why do we pray? So there was a lot to unpack there. As I told them, there's a month of Sundays on either one of those questions, 4 questions. But we focused in on the bulletin, which is basically our booklet that tells us what we're supposed to do when, and on the different types of prayers and why we pray. It was interesting. I did get some feedback later after I gave a little sermonette that people were talking but didn't really want the microphone. So it was a good discussion. So how do you think we answered that question of what is worship?
Well, I don't know. Within the UCC tradition, I would say that it's not significantly different from within ours.
It's not.
But there is an idea this is a place we gather together to persevere in our faith so that we don't forget what we're doing.
Right. That's what we kind of came up with. And so worship is basically, I don't know if you know the old Wayne's World, which is dating me significantly. But there was a segment in there or something they did recurringly where if somebody came in that they thought was better or had a better idea or was just blowing their mind, they would say, "We are not worthy, we are not worthy." So what I found out in my discussion was that worship was basically saying God is worthy. We're showing reverence, honoring and respecting God and each other as we come into the worship space. Kind of ties back to that resident alien thing. This is why you go back to the mothership.
We're returning home for a bit of a reminder why we're here to be different in this world. And part of that is that that means that in that space where we're gathered, in that space where we are sitting to worship and standing to worship, we are a little colony of heaven.
Wow.
So heaven has somehow touched our world in that little space, at least for that hour. Does that sound about right?
Yes. And sometimes it's hard to keep that in mind when you're preaching. But that's a discussion for another day.
Perhaps, but this idea of all the same being that this place is not the same place, this time is not the same as all other times.
Right.
Is a part of why we gather together for worship, to say something is different both in the world and in ourselves.
Definitely.
And so we have to say this is not the same as everything else we do in the course of the week. Something special occurs here and now.
Worship happens because what I think why we worship, one of the reasons, besides the one you just brought up, is we're actually told to do that. I know there's a real move to have the 10 Commandments, but basically the commandment I like the most is to love the Lord God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and to love your neighbor as yourself. And in worship, we're following that commandment. We're showing our love for God and for our neighbor. And even for ourselves, because we need that rest and that time to refresh and remember who we are.
So one of the theologians that I bring up often enough, Daniel Erlander, talks about how Sabbath is one of the most crucial commandments and directions that we get given in the Exodus story. It's so important that it starts before they get to Sinai. With the gift of manna and the gift of you get 6 days together, on the seventh day you rest. Even before they get to Sinai, even before the giving of the Ten Commandments, they are told rest is important.
And it was so radical. Sorry, I talked over you.
No.
So radical to the surrounding communities because this rest extended to the servants, to the non-Jewish, to the animals. It was a rest for the whole community, and that was something that really wasn't thought of within other surrounding civilizations or countries.
Well, and coming out of slavery, that experience
That makes sense.
you work, and that's how you exist. That's how you define yourself, is through work, through labor. And I feel like that's a thing that we may have.
Well, that's a very good point.
We have wandered back into that.
Oh, yes.
Egypt's system of not necessarily slavery, but that work is what defines you. And it's very easy to see that as proof when you meet somebody new for the first time. What do you ask? What do you do?
Well, I'm a retired preacher.
So that you're still defined by what your work
what I
was.
did.
And not necessarily, I am Joshua, I am a painter, I'm a whatever. Because
I'm a dog mom.
Exactly. We don't say that sort of stuff because we define ourselves by our labor. And if we define ourselves by our labor, then we have to do it 7 days a week.
That's right, because we don't have an identity on the seventh day.
Exactly. And so there is a lesson in this worship, which is, it's not all about you.
Oh, that was one of our main points. And I forgot it already. One of the main
It's an easy one to forget.
Yes, because that was the main thing, both in worship and prayer. When you pray and when you worship, you're saying, I'm not the one who's in charge. I am acknowledging that God is in charge.
And that feels very, very difficult.
Oh, control. We have such control issues.
Well, and I place it in with that worship Sabbath day thing where
It is.
God rested on the seventh day, but I'm too important. I can't do that.
I don't have enough time. God gave me 7 days and I'm going to use every bit of it.
I'm more important than God. And that's really where it comes out
Right,
in this
yeah.
space.
That's
And
exactly
so
what it means
We
here.
need this worship as a reset, as a rest, and also as a reminder, not everything is about you.
I watched a movie, Sinners, last night, which I'm not going to bring a lot up, but there's a scene at the beginning where the father pastor and the son are talking about the son not necessarily wanting to be in church right then on Saturday. He'll be there on Sunday. And the pastor says, where do you have to be that's more important than the house of God? And the son says, I've worked all week, I deserve a day off.
Okay?
And I think sometimes we feel that way.
Yeah.
I've worked all week, I deserve a day off.
And Sunday morning, that bed is nice and warm and fluffy.
Oh,
Even for me.
a cup of coffee.
Yeah. So we gather for worship for purpose, for reasons. It is not just for us, but it is for us. And we pray for reasons that are not just for us, but it is also for us.
One of the things I asked the congregation to do was to look at their bulletin and count how many times we prayed. And they kind of looked at me like, I said, I haven't counted it, I just know there's a lot of them in there.
There certainly are.
And I got the answers, and that was one place people were really eager to respond.
Yeah.
And they counted the prayers I did that weren't in the bulletin.
Oh, yeah.
And then they talked about the prayers they did when they were at home
Yeah.
and in the car and things like that.
So what do you pray for in the car?
Sometimes just for a safe place.
Okay.
And you know what I was going to say because I was in the Bay Area too.
Yeah.
Somebody please open up a parking place. Not such an issue in Wheatland.
It's not so much a problem, but it definitely was every time you drove anywhere in San Francisco, any of that sort of stuff.
Well, that brings up the other issue. Is anything too trivial to pray for?
solid question.
And it's not something I ask the congregation.
I would say that there is not, but we've been enculturated to think that there is.
Right. So Jesus says, if your Father in heaven, if people know what you need, surely your Father in heaven knows more what you need. It also says, pray. Bring to God your concerns, your joys, and all those things.
So even praying for a parking space is not too trivial.
As long as you don't forget to pray for the flood victims.
As long as you don't forget.
I put a condition on there that is not in the Bible. I would say praying for your good over other people would not be following the biblical tenets.
That's fair.
You know, because you got to remember, love God, love your neighbor as yourself.
Yeah.
Boy, that's a hard one.
It is a hard one.
The other thing, one of my favorite theologians is not nearly as auspicious as yours, Annie Lamott.
I don't think I know that name.
She's from the Bay Area,
Okay.
and she actually was a drug addict, and she, in recovery, went to one of my professors at San Francisco Theological Seminary, James Noel, and she began to develop a faith. And her faith is very personal, very not cluttered with a lot of the learning that we have. And over time, she writes about her faith. And one of them is a book, I believe it's called Wow, Help Me, and Thank You.
Okay.
And she says that that's the three things that we pray about. Wow, reverence for God. Help me, which we don't need any definition of, from the parking place or, cancer or whatever it might be. And I include in that help others. And then we also have thank you. And sometimes I think we're really good at the middle one, but not so good at the thank you and the awe.
Yeah. And we've discussed this in other places. We have this experience that God is a therapist who's here to help us, who's here to fix us. And I don't mean therapist necessarily as in mental therapist.
Yeah.
Physical therapy is a thing, all those sorts of things. That God's job is to fix things when they're broken and otherwise doesn't enter into our world. And that's such a small portion of what we really need to understand.
And God doesn't stop suffering because the world is broken.
Yeah.
Sometimes God may do that, but mostly God is with us in the suffering, walking with us and showing us what we can do. It's not all about us.
And that's the lesson we take out of worship. It's not about you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if that's compatible with the very self-interested world that we live in.
This is true.
Yeah. So one of the things we talked about this week then is we talked about worship itself as this structure. Are there things that we're willing to change?
That is a great question.
And are there things that we want to hold on to, that we want to keep the same? And I know at least the first thing that came up was this idea, worship is a rhythm of life. We have to hold on to it and have to do it week by week by week, in the same way that you keep breathing week by week, well, minute by minute, whatever.
I was gonna say.
Your heart beats on a rhythm, and if it's out of rhythm, bad things happen.
Yes.
And there's a similarity to our idea of worship, that it happens on this rhythm, and it's not a different thing every week. And I know that there are congregations, there are churches where they do different things every week. Every week is a different experience. But within our world and our tradition, one of the things we are expecting is a familiarity of what we're doing so that it can be that rhythm of life. This is a thing that we do. This is who we are as the people who gather together in this colony of heaven once a week. And maybe not once a week. I understand that sometimes things get in the way, things happen, and things prevent us from being there. But having that rhythm is a really important thing that we don't want to give up.
No. And when you throw in something different, it can be challenging. So you might need to introduce it
Yeah.
and talk about it. And not make unilateral decisions like I did when I was a beginning pastor.
Oh, no.
Oh yes, but I learned from that experience.
I'll bet you did.
Very quickly. So there is a reason that we do things the way we do. One thing is that it frees people up to focus on what we're doing instead of have to remember or learn something new on how we're doing it.
Because learning something new every single week gets exhausting.
Especially when the world is moving so fast, and outside in the world, we're learning new things, whether we want to or not, constantly.
Yeah. So as far as things that we don't want to give up, at least that rhythm of life is a big one. Other things that we may not want to give up, and this is one of those things where we talked about it last week. How much of the liturgical phenomenon are we willing to say this is not important? And so one of the things we're going to experience this coming week, and I'm sort of glancing ahead a little bit here, when we gather together, UCC congregation and Covenant Lutheran congregation come together at once, one of the things that we're going to have to deal with is that we're using our liturgy, our lessons, and you guys are going to gather together with us. And UCC, at least, is not a creedal church.
Right. We do use creeds occasionally. We use
Sure.
the Apostles' Creed or the Nicene Creed, which that's a whole other video. But we don't use them every week.
Right. Whereas it is a part of our tradition and our history. And part of this is because, at least within the ELCA, we are primarily the inheritors of state churches from Europe that came and made Lutheran churches here in the U.S. We point back to Henry Melchior Muhlenberg, who started all of this. It's important stuff. It's not really that important. But we point back to these state churches that came and brought people here to the U.S. to become Americans and to still be Lutherans in this new place. And one of the things we bring with us is we brought with us the Small Catechism. And the Small Catechism got translated into English and handed to youth as part of their education. And in that Small Catechism, Martin Luther explains through the Apostles' Creed. And so this becomes a touchstone for those people who are immigrants to America. This is a thing that we're not going to let go of, because this is a thing we brought with us, whether it was from Sweden or Norway or Germany or Iceland or wherever we came from. We can still hold on to this. And so it becomes a historical part of our tradition that we do every week. And it really is every week, in contrast with how the UCC does.
Right, and that was a learning for me as well, because I am a Presbyterian, PCUSA, and we're a creedal church. So much so that we have three major books that we look at, besides the Bible. That's the first one. We have the Book of Confessions, which has, I can't remember, it has changed recently, I believe, several confessions, all the way from the Apostles' Creed up to one that was written in modern times back in the 60s. The church moves slowly sometimes. And that is important to us. And so normally we would use the Apostles' Creed in worship and the Nicene Creed during communion. And then we might use some of the other creeds for parts of our prayers and our liturgy.
So it must have been a big change to show up and say, oh, that's not that important, we don't do it so much.
Right.
What did that feel like?
It was interesting because there is value. One of the reasons we do that is because we want to see how the church, one of the sayings for the Presbyterian Church, or one of our, I guess it's our theme, is that we are reformed and always reforming. As the world changes, we're not trying to adapt to the world at all, but we are trying to say that as we listen to the Spirit and as we continue to study and open ourselves up to God, then there may be things that we see differently, such as women preaching.
Sure. Which I'm sure was a new experience in some places.
It's still a new experience in some places.
I will say that I grew up in a church where women were ordained before I was born.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I am so used to it being a thing that when I went out into a larger world and found out that there are people who don't do that, it was very distressing in some ways.
I grew up in the Baptist church.
Oh, did you?
Yes.
Okay.
We don't do that. They don't do that at all.
No.
Because there is and I should not speak to this because I don't continue to go to the Baptist church, But one of the difference between more Reformed and liturgical churches isn't that we don't believe in the Bible, because sometimes that gets passed around. We do. The Bible is the foundation of how we learn and know what God is saying. But we may not take everything actually literally.
So we have this historical critical perspective rather than a literal perspective.
Right.
And I think that there's value in that as well.
Right. But I love that I have a background in the Baptist church because I know my Bible.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
That was required.
So this idea of what are we willing to give up, what are we willing to change in our worship, and so that people who are unfamiliar with it, people who are not used to it, might come and say, okay, this is something I can figure out, because liturgical systems they're fantastic, and they are ancient, and they are traditional, and they are sometimes a barrier.
They are sometimes a barrier. I was noticing all the different words we use that are not used, and that we've used this morning. Liturgy, Book of Confessions, the Small Catechism.
Yeah.
Those are just three that came up on, what does that mean to anybody that is not currently going to church?
So the worry is that these things, which we love and treasure, make us more insular.
Yes. You have to know the lingo.
Yeah. And that's not useful for where we're headed, which is making disciples.
Right. Even the word disciple is an inside word.
That's true.
It is used sometimes in the secular world as you would have somebody as a mentor.
Sure.
To explain, you're a disciple of somebody, they're your mentor basically.
Sure.
Or that's the kind of structure you follow. Which probably isn't too far off, now I think about it.
I would assume not.
Yeah, because we're disciples of Christ, so Christ is our mentor.
That's a specific group.
That's our group, right.
Well, disciples of Christ is a specific
Oh, it is. It's actually a denomination.
Yeah. So
And-
we might be careful on that one.
And actually, I know somebody that I had some experience with that denomination too.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit of a mover.
That's okay.
Yeah, not changing denominations, but we have agreements where pastors from one of these denominations can preach at other churches or lead other churches.
Yeah. So next week we're getting ready. We are going to have our wrap up from this first section. We've got 3 sections, 3 different months that we're going to be doing something. And so we're wrapping up this first one, and we're doing it once again with a joint reflection service, sort of as we did in the park.
Right, that was a lot of
We're going to gather
fun.
back together this time because it is going to be mid-July. It feels a bad idea to do it in the park again. So this week we are going to gather at Covenant Lutheran Church at 9 a.m. And I know that that's not the usual time for people at the UCC Church, but next month in August we're going to join you, and so we will adjust for your time.
That's good, and I hope your people don't decide they like our time better.
I don't know, they might. We'll see.
We'll see.
And that's the question.
That'll be
Is
the thing
this-
in worship when
Is
they
this a
change.
thing that we're willing to change in worship? And I know some people are very willing to change, and some people would hate it if
Oh
we
yeah,
change.
we've had that discussion just about the 9 o'clock
Well,
time next week.
and I know some people really want it at 8 a.m. so that they can go out and get work done and do
Uh-huh.
stuff. And I'm really resisting against that one because of our pre-existing discussion we've had about worship times and rest.
Yes.
But there are people who want to do it at 8 in the morning so that we can go get stuff done afterwards. It doesn't take up the whole day to do church.
Get that church out of the way.
Yeah. I get where they're coming from. I do.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think 9 a.m. is still too early for me. I would do so much better at 10.
I guarantee 10's better for me.
So we're going to give this a shot, 9 a.m.
Yes.
And there, one of the things we will do is we will have service, of course, and we will reflect on what we've done for this past month. We will talk about what it means to be resident aliens in the world, how we are not of the world, but we are in the world.
Right.
And so having been here, what do we do about that? And part of our job is to be a contrast society, to be different from the world around us. We are not Egypt, we are not Rome, we are not Babylon. And a lot of the world that we live in now is. Right? Egypt is the people who demands that we work as slaves for 7 days a week. Whereas the world that we live in says rest is a gift and a treasure. Egypt says, look out for number one. You are the most important person. You take care of yourself and ignore everybody else. We are the people who say, love your neighbor. And so what does this mean for us in this world? And we've talked about that some this past couple of weeks.
Right, and yeah, about how we welcome people into, and then we struggle with having people in that haven't been church.
Yeah.
But Christianity's not about comfort. Not always.
No.
They actually probably shouldn't be most of the time.
Well, that's leaning in towards our discipleship world here, right? And so one of the terms we've used out of Philippians was ambassadors. That our job is to be so wonderful and amazing at being followers of God that everyone goes, you know, this world of Egypt is exhausting. This world of Egypt is painful. But those guys, they look like they've got their acts together, and that looks like a place where love is a priority over profit.
Right.
That looks like the place where caring for others, including caring for me, is more important than caring for just me. And so hopefully, as these ambassadors is the term we've used here, we can attract people to understand a better way. There's a purpose in this, and there's a goal that we have that we should gather together to learn, to pray, to worship, and to say, we can be better than we were.
Yes.
And so that's where we come to our next month's project. Rather than talking about the purpose of the church, we'll be talking about what exactly is discipleship and how do we make disciples. And there's some assumptions in those questions. One of those being that we already are disciples, right?
Yeah.
Done. Finished.
No.
So we're going to have to talk about this as a journey rather than as a...
Right.
Yeah.
We don't get like a certificate that says you were a
I have
disciple.
lots of certificates.
I do too. And I bet
They're up in my office.
some people think that I did probably a little bit before I became a pastor. I'm a professional disciple, which there isn't such a thing. We're all disciples, not just the pastors.
And so what this idea of discipleship is and what it means, we're going to talk about a little bit more in depth. As process, as journey, as pilgrimage, and where we're going to go with this.
Oh, as community, sorry.
Yeah. As a thing that we do together.
Right.
That's where we're going to head with this in discipleship in these coming weeks. How do we make disciples?
Wow.
All right, so is there anything else that we need to talk about that we haven't yet?
No, I think we've done all we should do this morning.
Okay.
And Elisa will be leading along with Josh next week.
Well, actually, she won't. I won't be here next week.
So it'll be Lisa and me and Beth?
Yes.
Wow.
So it will be Lisa, you, Beth, and you're going to discuss what we did together at our congregation. You can talk about me when I'm not there.
Oh, good.
Maybe I should figure out how I can be here. Now,
Thank goodness Will edits this.
Monday morning I'll be at the zoo, so it'll be fun. Well, thank you very, very much for watching. We're glad you're here.
And we hope that there was something in this that made your day brighter.
Thank you.
But